Shut up and sit down.
And with us now is Matt Lepay, the voice of the Badgers. Tell me what that title means to you, voice of the Badgers, because it sounds cool.
It is cool. It's very cool. It means really this job, it's the games are maybe 35% of what you do in a role like this. It's a lot of other programming that you do, a lot of emceeing of luncheons and banquets and all of that fun stuff. You go around the state in the off season, the summer months, at least hopefully we can start to do that here at some point, and represent the program, represent the university. It, as the old line goes, it beats working for a living. So I've been doing this here for a while.
So Matt shared with us before we jumped on today that he caught our first episode with Barry Alvarez. And that was super exciting to me because that means that we're being seen by people that are also going to come on the show. I thought that was pretty cool. I have a bone to pick with John, though, and we're going to talk about this right now. So John told me that Barry Alvarez is the godfather of Wisconsin, right? And so apparently, though, because I read Matt Lepay's book, that people don't say that to Barry Alvarez's face until he came on the show. And then I'm like, hey, the godfather of Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez.
Good for you.
Whoops.
Oh, I think a few people do. I think Herb Street probably would be one of those, Kirk Herbstreit. A couple of others. But, yeah, it's normally that's what we say when he's not in the room. Hey, the godfather's coming.
Yeah.
And then when Barry gets here, it's, hi, Barry. Hi, Barry. Good to see you again. So that's all right.
Then we just call him the Don, and then it's okay. So
perfect.
So really, Trevor, other than calling him the Godfather and screwing up Joe Thomas, the first episode went terrific.
Flawless.
We should get that out of the way right now. Matt, name 2 players in Wisconsin since you've been there that are better than Joe Thomas.
Can't.
Thank you. Moving on.
Can't.
Trevor, go.
All right. So I did say to Barry that the only constant in Wisconsin, especially on the football side, since 1990 was Barry Alvarez, but that was a flat out lie. Here's Matt Lepay, who's been with the Badgers since 1988. I do know the date. So, Matt, I got to ask, you gave up San Diego to move to Madison, Wisconsin. Any regrets?
Yeah, no, it was the wife who had the opportunity to go out there to San Diego. No, well, not now. At first, we wondered. Sure, we asked ourselves the first couple of winters up here when it's 25 below and 2 feet of snow, and we're thinking in La Jolla, it's probably a little better than this. But no, after all these years, my wife is actually a faculty associate at the University of Wisconsin. It's turned out to be a perfect situation for us, but I mean, come on. The first couple of winters in the upper Midwest when you know you could have been in San Diego, you think about it a little bit.
I have a great college friend who is the CFO at Puma Cobra, and every once in a while he'll go, hey, look, I see you on TV. I'm at lunch, and then he goes, but I'm not watching because I look at this, and he turns around, and there's the Pacific Ocean, and then, and I'm like, okay. And I text him something that I wouldn't want to say out in publicly, but yeah, he has no problem letting me know how beautiful it is where he is, and he likes to do that like November through February through March to let me know, and I'm just, here we are in Connecticut. It's beautiful. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to be here 12 months out of the year, but oh well. So what have you found in Wisconsin? That's sort of the essence of this show, is to sort of get to the DNA, get to the root of whatever it is that makes our state unique, what makes our state someplace that is endearing to us who grew up and lived there. What is it about that Wisconsin? Because you're a Midwestern guy at heart.
Right.
At Ohio, and so I'm not necessarily sure that there's all that much difference. But what is it about the Midwest that you find unique or comforting, or that you enjoy?
Here, the first thing, John, that I noticed when I moved up here is the total absence of pretense. I mean, we are who we are up here now. I think I can say we. I've lived here long enough. This is who we are. If you like us, great. If you don't, well, that's fine. There's the door. And in my role is the Badgers. Radio voice of the Badgers, whatever you want to call it. You speak at a lot of different events, and a lot of times you're around, donors, high-end donors, but you wouldn't know that their net worth is off the charts when you meet them, because they're very everyday people. And that's one of the great things that I've noticed about this state is that we do what we do, and we have a lot of fun. We embrace the long winters. That's one of the big differences maybe that I noticed here from maybe a lot of other places, either a couple places where I've lived before. It's a real separator to me about people in the state of Wisconsin.
To some degree, the weather does shape that. You talk about the lack of pretense. I see that around here all the time. And people, they try to charge from their car to the grocery store or fill up their gas as quick as they can. And I'll go outside in winter and people go, well, you're from Wisconsin. You should love winter. I'm like, no, the cold is terrible. It's cold to me too. But you know what? I don't mind putting on a hat and gloves and a coat. It's okay if my hair gets messed up, as long as my ears are warm, right? But you find that literally people, that vanity is like, oh, I'll risk catching cold rather than put on a hat and look foolish. I'm like, screw you. If it's minus 12, I'm going to stay warm. Like that's, as my dad would say, I'm going to dress for speed, not for comfort. And in that point, I'm walking out of the house. And that's when you get to the pretense. I think a lot of it is shaped by that. We're like, okay, this is what we have to do because it's cold outside, so we're going to practically do that, right? There's a practicality to it that I think is that's universal as well inside the borders.
No, I agree. We'll layer up and we'll go out to dinner and we'll order a big brandy old fashioned suite. Which, if you do that outside of Wisconsin, they look at you like you have two heads. But we know what a brandy old-fashioned sweet is. So that's what we do after we peel off our 10 layers in the middle of January when we go to the supper club. That's the life that we live.
So as if you couldn't get more Wisconsin, then all of a sudden you show up on the Brewers broadcast in 2014, which is awesome, by the way. But I got to be honest, as a guy who's only ever known Matt Lepay's voice to be with the Badgers, it took a minute. But you're phenomenal at it. I mean, from football and basketball, all of a sudden now to baseball and the Brewers. Tell us about that.
I appreciate that. The job or the opportunity fell out of the sky. I mean, this was during 2000. It was in 2014, or actually after the 2013 season. A third party told me that the Brewers were interested in looking for someone who could step in when Brian Anderson is away with his national duties. He's to me, on the short list of the best broadcasters out there with what BA has done in multiple sports. And I said, sure, I'd be interested, but I got to level with you. I grew up a baseball fan in Ohio, and it was my first love growing up. But my resume is very limited. In fact, I might be able to dig up a cassette tape of a minor league game or an American Legion game I could give you. But just a fair warning, if you want to, it'd be great to talk with you, but I've got to be up front. And I ended up, maybe everybody else turned it down, but they offered me the opportunity to step in for BA. And some years it's been 55 or 60 games, but now we're kind of dialing it back into the 25 to 30. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, make a zillion mistakes. Especially the first couple of years, hopefully less than a zillion now. But Bill Schroeder's a great guy to work with. Everybody involved in our broadcast team. Sophia Minert is as good as it gets, and what she does as a reporter. Our producers, directors, the club has been wonderful to me. But it's kind of a side hustle, I guess, for me right now. I'm not really looking to be a full-time baseball announcer, but it's an opportunity I never thought would happen, and I've really enjoyed it.
Sophia Minert, former ESPN employee. She was a PA here for a long time. I worked with her back in the day when you came through that. So okay, so you're Ohio, and you like baseball. Were you on the Reds side or were you on the Indian side?
No, I grew up big Reds fan, and growing up in the '70s, Big Red Machine era.
Yeah, that's.
That was, you talk about being a spoiled fan growing up. I got spoiled in a hurry with the back-to-back World Series teams, 75, 76, really. Love the way they played. They could beat you in a variety of ways. I think it's going to go down, certainly, and still does, as one of the best teams assembled, if not ever, in a very long time, with Hall of Famers practically everywhere. Somebody
sent me a picture recently of that team. Here's Bench, and then here's Doggy Perez, and Morgan and Concepcion and Rose and Griffey and Foster, Geronimo, Griffey.
Yep.
And he sends me the picture and he goes, just by looking at this, you've just lost 2 out of 3.
Pretty much.
By looking at the picture, you've lost 2 out of 3. And if you stare at it too long, you're going to be swept. Right. And all those guys were not just great for their time, but they're generationally good. I know this is a Wisconsin thing, but this is listen, I'm sorry, Trevor, I'm going to agree with you. There was, name me a catcher better than Johnny Bench. You can't. Name me a guy who was a better second baseman ever than Joe Morgan, and you can't. And some of those guys they were ridiculous. And what's even more amazing is at the time, the manager of that club, Sparky Anderson, right? Who Matt, like you and I, he was gray as could be. He managed those clubs. He was younger than Tom Brady is right now.
Right. And he looked, and looked a lot older than his age at the time. But yeah, he was terrific. And they could beat you with power, they could beat you with speed, they could beat you with defense. Terrific bullpen, good starting pitching. They had it all.
Yeah.
More with the voice of the Wisconsin Badgers. And do we call you the fill-in guy for the Brewers? It just doesn't make sense.
The Badgers.
More with Matt.
We should talk about the Badgers too. We should talk about the Badgers when we come back. I'm sorry about all the Reds talk.
More with Matt Lepay after this on Inside Wisconsin.
Shut up and sit down.